Welcome to today's tutorial on how to use LoggerPro to create a graph that will allow us to calculate the slope of two different sets of data, looking at the volume and mass of plastic blocks to eventually use the slope to compare to density. So my plan for today is to take you through the process of using the LoggerPro program to correctly label everything and input the data, and then finally use the program's tools to analyze the best fit line trend to determine the density. So the first thing we want to do is label our data set. So you're going to double click and that will bring up a window. In that place, what I want you to write is the color of the blocks. So you can type that in and click OK. Next, we want to label our columns, which will correspond to the axes on the graph. If we want the slope of the line to be density, rise, y, over run, x, then we need to put the volume on the x-axis, and our units of volume is centimeters cubed. This allows us to show a cool feature where this drop down next to the units box allows you to put that superscript in to make sure that the cubed part is shown as the exponent and correctly formatted. Next, our y-axis is going to be mass, and the unit for that we measured in grams. You'll notice by putting it into the correct boxes, it's formatting those units in parentheses as part of the label on the axes. So it does it for us, makes it a lot simpler to create the graph. So for this set of data, I'm going to start entering my data. Alright, so you'll notice that as that data has been entered, you do have to get out of that box for the final data point to show up. I'm also going to have you put in a 0, 0 point. So we now have a point at 0, 0, and then we have our other data set points out here in the graph. If you want to have this set up, we can do an auto scale feature. So this A with the rulers, when you click it, it will automatically auto scale. Currently, this is showing it in the correct spacing, so you'll notice that when I clicked it, it did not move anymore. Okay. So we have our first set of data in. We're now going to add a new data set. To do that, we go to Data, choose New Data Set. Because we already labeled our columns, it carried that over. We just have to double click where data set was to put in our new color. This set of blocks for me were the black blocks. Alright, to save us a little time, I just paused the video while I input that data. You'll notice though, unlike the last set of data, there are no markings on the graph to indicate that data set. The default on the program is to hide that. So you're going to right click, Graph Options, then we're going to select Axes Options. You'll notice here that it has our white block set and there's a little plus sign next to black. When we click that, it brings up my variables. Like the one above, I'm going to check my y-axis, the mass, and then I'm going to click Done. You'll notice it now adjusted the graph and added in those data points, and we'll get that last one in here. So the next step is we want to analyze our data. Since we want to include all the points that are on here, we could simply go to Analyze and choose Linear Fit. Both of these sets of data come from density, which is a linear relationship. That is why we are choosing the linear fit best fit line. We will check the boxes for the data sets we want to analyze and click OK. These boxes can move around, so I'm adjusting those so that they don't cover up our best fit lines or our points. And the slope then is going to correlate with our density. So we know that because of the way we set it up, mass divided by volume is how we calculated our slope. This is indicating the slope of the black material is 0.9805 grams per centimeters cubed. Notice that our unit is correctly calculated because of how we set up the graph. And for our white blocks, we have 0.6033. The last thing that we need to do is give our graph a title. So we're going to right click Graph Options again. And heading back here, we want to put our title in the box. I'm going to choose Determining Density for Various Substances. What this title is telling me is that we set out to determine the density based on the slope of the graph. It's not simply density graph or something like that. It gives more information about what we set out to do, our objective. If you would ever need to print this for a report, these boxes often come up really small. So if you right click in the box, double click on the box and click Appearance, you can increase the size of the font. The 11 seems to be pretty okay. So then when you copy paste into some other document, it will make it easier to read that. So we have our data points, we have our analysis, we have a title, we have labeled axes. Notice that the data in the graph takes up a large portion of the space in the graph, so all things we would look for in something that goes into a lab report.